Hey, what up everyone? Back once again, and I've got another Twitch stream recap for you. It's been a while, I know. Sorry about that. But we're back, so disregard all of that. Let's get into it. Today we're looking at my cover redraw of Cannibal Corpse's Eaten Back to Life, the debut album, the sort of gateway into death metal, thrash kind of stuff. It's an awesome album. Every kind of metalhead pretty much knows it. It's one of those classic ones that sort of game changers. And of course we know the cover and all the Cannibal Corpse covers because they're all awesome and gnarly. Thanks to Vince Locke. So yeah, this one it took a little bit longer than the other ones. I really wanted to do it justice. There's a lot to it. There's a foreground, background, there's a lot of detail, a lot of gore. I really wanted to capture that. I kept it pretty true to the OG art, but I sort of put a bit more of my own kind of spin on it. Yeah, it was fun. It took a lot longer than the other ones, so pretty much all the other album redraws that I've done have been one night, so 3 to 4 hours. This one actually did over 2 nights because I spent a bit more time sketching it. You could see, like, as it's up on the screen there, just how much more work I put into the sketch, the figure. I really wanted to do the original art justice. It's so good. Vince Locke, who did the art for every Cannibal Corpse album, I think was it 15, 16 albums. So he's been a mainstay for them, but also in metal, setting the tone for hardcore, brutal gore art, for the whole death metal genre, which is no mean feat. How many people are in bands, how many people do art, posters, albums, all that kind of stuff, and to be such a seminal figure in the scene, as it were, is no mean feat. So you can see here I'm sort of refining. So I did a pretty rough sketch. I really wanted to make sure everything was in there. And then this is sort of a refining sketch, like a better sketch, I guess. So while I'm doing that, let's talk about some facts. So, Cannibal Corpse, Eaten Back to Life, it was their first album, the debut album. And it is actually 5 songs from the previous demo that it did and 6 new songs. So they took the songs they already had, wrote some new ones, and they drove down to Morissound in Tampa, Florida. Now, if you don't know, Morissound is the place to be if you want to record death metal, especially at that time, 89, 90, when death metal was sort of coming into its own, and not a lot of producers or recording studios really knew how to get the most out of it. But Morissound, they'd already done stuff for Death, Morbid Angel, I think they also did like Sepultura, heaps of stuff. So if you want to do a death metal album, you go to Morissound and you record with Scott Burns. So they did that, and the band is from Buffalo, New York. So that's a bit of a drive. I think it's something crazy, something like 15-20 hour drive or something. I don't know. I didn't look it up. I should have. I'm bad, sorry. But it's a long ass drive, and they made the trek. They did it in like 2 weeks or something like that, and killed it. So when it was originally released, it was banned in Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Korea, a whole bunch of other countries. Straight up banned. And you couldn't even get censored versions of the album because it wasn't really just the cover art. It was, the art, the music, the themes, all that kind of stuff. The album actually has a liner note that says it's dedicated to Alfred Packer, who was actually the first American cannibal. So that's kind of nice. Nice little dedication you got there. So we talked about Vince Locke just before, and he was a comic artist, and he had a comic called Dead World. And the band saw the comic and went, yeah, this is great. This would be cool. Hit him up. And and got him to do the art, which he did in watercolor. I think watercolor and gouache. So, you know, hand painted. This is the early 90s, so it's not really a whole lot of like Photoshop going on. So yeah, created the art, painted it by hand, and then has since gone to do all the other albums, which is awesome. I know that the album Kill, the main cover actually just has the word kill really big on it, but there is actually a Vince Locke cover, the evil guy with a cool dagger and stuff, which is the cooler album cover. What else we got here? Yeah, so the band, when they started out, I watched a cool documentary about them that had a lot of detail about it, and they said that, you know, they wanted to make heavy, brutal kind of music, and, you know, the prevalent style for metal at the time was thrash, and a lot of that was concerned with like Satan and sort of like hell, and, you know, Slayer had all that kind of stuff, you know, hell awaits and black magic and all that kind of stuff, which is great. And they said it in the documentary, like, yeah, Slayer kind of does the Satan thing and a bunch of other kind of stuff. So their kind of progression was into more sort of like B-movie horror slasher stuff, which is, you know, prevalent in the mid to late 80s. That was the style that was really picking up when you think about Freddy, Jason, Mike Myers, all that kind of stuff. It was a lot of gore, and it was kind of silly and a bit fun and stuff as well. Nothing about it is really like malicious or anything like that. So that was the direction I wanted to go, and so that was a lot of the lyrics that Chris Barnes, who was the original vocalist, he wrote a lot of most of the lyrics for the songs. That was kind of what he was thinking about when he was writing it, and he said he wanted to write lyrics that matched the tone of the music. It was like frantic, heavy, crunching, growly, you know, so it makes sense when you think about it like that. So this is the debut album. So they've had a few lineup changes over the years. Probably the most famous one is to sub in Corpsegrinder for Chris Barnes. So he was having sort of more creative differences with the band, and they sort of decided to split. He went on to play in 6 Feet Under and other stuff, and said that he was like really happy and it was quite amicable, which was cool. A couple of other people left or got replaced or things like that, but the mainstays have been there since the beginning, and helped to really solidify what the band is about. So this album is a bit more thrashy, like, because it was their first album, still kind of finding their feet, and as well, you know, different members bring different things to the band musically as well. So some people might be into more thrashy stuff, so they want it faster. Some people wanted to do more crunchy, chuggy, which we sort of know as sort of the Death signature style riffs. So this is a bit more of a coming of age story, really, in terms of the album and what it sounds like. Their kind of musical influences, you know, subsequent albums that go on to write stuff. It was more unique or more developed. A lot of it is based on the technical mastery of like how good the guitar playing is, how good the drumming is, and that's a real hallmark of death metal, is the technical aspect of it. You know, you've since gone to have other genres spawned from that, which is technical death metal, which is even more tech, and then you got prog, and then from that you have things like grind and stuff like that. Alright, getting back to the art, you can see now I pretty much got the sort of the final ink version of what I wanted to look like down. I did the sketch, I did the refined sketch, and then on top of that I did the inks. Now it's up to the colors. Colors, it's not such a big kind of deal because I already had the color palette worked out in advance, and I really wanted all these 9 albums to sit together. I think, so you could see the camera changes there to daytime. So that was the point where I was like, look, I've done enough. I think it was like 4.5 hours. I'll come back and color it the next day. So I think I just did this on my own. I didn't really want to stream it. I just wanted to get it done. But I made sure to record it so I could put it as part of the video. You can see here I'm going through and masking out the figure so that I can really sort of have a go at the background and get it kind of nice and loose and grainy, and not have to worry about it impacting the figure. It might seem like something that's a little bit of a cheat, but you can actually do this kind of stuff if you're working traditionally. You can like get things like a liquid mask medium, which you just sort of paint on, and then after it dries you can just rub it off. It's really easy. It means you can paint over it, do crazy backgrounds, use spray paint or whatever, and then just remove the liquid mask. It's like a rubbery kind of feel. It's basically the same thing as we're doing here in Photoshop. I do tend to think about, when I'm working in Photoshop, the traditional aspect of how this would work in the real world if I was using paint, gouache, what have you, to try and help keep it grounded. I do kind of want to break out of that a little bit, because there's things you can do obviously in Photoshop and computer and stuff like that you can't do with traditional mediums, that are cool, and to make use of the medium that you're using is a smart way to do things, and it's also kind of interesting. You get different effects. A lot of digital art you see nowadays, whether it's just on Instagram or ArtStation or what have you, they really use different kind of techniques that you can't necessarily really use, or you can, but it takes a long time. It's very tedious in traditional media, and so that's kind of cool. It's just like pushing an envelope using the medium that you got. You can see obviously now the very important part of adding blood to the gory stuff. You can't really have a death metal album cover without a whole lot of blood. In this particular series, I had a sort of a certain red tone picked out, so I just brought that color layer in. You can see in the layers palette, I usually work off a color layer, which means you can tweak the color pretty easily, and there's just a mask applied to it. That also means when you're working on the mask, you can use X on your keyboard to switch between black and white, so you can sort of paint back and forth, and then when you're done, you can just apply that mask to that color layer and it cuts it out transparent. If you were doing a layer on top painting with the actual color and then you wanted to change it somewhat, you would have to use either like the hue saturation palette to try and tweak it that way, but that might interfere with other parts where that painted brush stroke interacts with another color or something like that. For me, when I do a lot of this kind of stuff, it usually ends up on a t-shirt. So making things that are already cut out so they're transparent but retain the values that I want is very, very useful. It just means that I could go in and use that mask on that color layer that's already cut it out. And before you can even do that, you can make the color layer black, apply the mask, and it's done. Ready for exposing a screen or something like that. And then what you can also do is then have a base layer of white, and if you're going to print color and stuff on top, you could use that mask as a reference and just paste it into another mask, so you get exactly the forms and the values that you want. Sometimes if you try and use the command click on a mask, it doesn't really capture the values. It really just captures the sort of black and white. But if you've got a lot of tones, you've got a lot of texture in there, it's not going to get that. So working with a mask on a color fill layer, highly recommended. Really, really good, really easy. So getting back to the art, you can see now that the background is pretty much styled in. I got the three main tones, the four really: black, the dark grey, light grey, and white. And I kind of put just enough in there to make the figure in the foreground stick out, and to kind of go along with the source material. I think I actually do go in towards the end and add a bit of red into the sky just to give that ominous kind of feel. Right now you can see I'm going across all the red blood kind of layer to add highlights, to really make it pop, to make it feel like it's shiny, as blood tends to be because it's like a liquid. It's really just a lot of detail, bits and pieces. So here we go. I'm just taking away some of the black of the outline shadow to have a bit more of a less feel like that that everything's outlined. I'm just filling in. I really want to have the feel like the blood is coming over the top of things. So sometimes that means getting rid of outlines at certain points where highlights will hit it, because it just makes it have a bit more of a 3D kind of feel. It's always nice to have a bit of variety in texture, because if everything's got an outline, it can really flatten your work. So that's a good tip. I feel like we're getting pretty close. I've done the logos, I've done the Eat to Life tag. I actually used the newer version of the Cannibal Corpse logo. I sort of started to do it and then I realized, but I don't know, I kind of like the new version. I know the original version has got that sort of a wonky kind of feel, but the new one actually sits in that space really well. Alright, so there we go, we're done. You can see I added a little bit of blood splatters in there to sort of make it seem like really frantic and stuff. I tweaked some stuff to do with the background, to the gravestones and all that kind of stuff. But overall, yeah, it was good. I'm glad I put the extra time into it. Sometimes it's a bit, don't want to feel like I'm rushing it, but this turned out pretty good, pretty happy with it. So yeah, thanks for coming and listening to me drivel on while I draw all this crap, and then I'll be back very soon with the next one. Alright, take it easy guys. See ya.